Donald Trump's latest executive order is going to speed up the rate of species extinction and speed up the destruction of our planet. This is bizarre. Check this out. Leave your comments, ding the bell, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel. So Donald Trump has just by executive order put hundreds of species at risk of extinction, ocean-based species. He's opened 5,000 square miles of the Atlantic Ocean that had been protected habitats to commercial fishing. Jake Johnson writing about this over at commondreams.org. Ancient and slow-growing deep-sea corals, endangered large whales and sea turtles, array of fish, seabirds, sharks, dolphins, wildlife will pay the price for this in a move that environmentalists warn could further imperil hundreds of endangered species just for the sake of profit. Donald Trump on Friday signed a proclamation rolling back an Obama-era order and opened nearly 5,000 square miles off the coast of New England to commercial fishing. His Interior Secretary, former mining and oil lobbyist David Bernhardt, said, quote, "I love it. We're effectively taking down a no fishing sign in the Atlantic Ocean. The minute you sign it, we'll begin planning." And he did sign it, and yeah, Interior Secretary David Bernhardt's, good buddies, billionaire buddies are just licking their chops. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Destroy the planet and make more money. This is all interrelated. This disrespect for some humans, placing some humans above other humans, this disrespect for our environment, this disrespect for dissent, and the ideals of democracy. I mean, at all these different levels, this stuff all fits together. And meanwhile, the Republican Party is just floundering right now. Donald Trump is underwater in the polls the way that George Herbert Walker Bush was at this point in 1992, and the way that in 1980 Jimmy Carter was. And, they were both in really bad shape at this point. Jimmy Carter had the hostages being held in Iran, and Ronald Reagan was shipping spare tires via Israel to the Iranians to keep those hostages there, please. This was before the election at this point in time. And George Herbert Walker Bush was, just viewed as an ineffectual boob. And, his little war in Iraq didn't really impress anybody. And people were looking back on the Willie Horton ads that he had used, to defeat Michael Dukakis in 1988 in that election. And, Lee Atwater's Willie Horton ads, and going, this guy isn't as all-American as we thought, shall we say. And on top of that, the Iran-Contra stuff was starting to come to a head. If you go back and read the New York Times throughout the month, October, November, December of 1992, you see that William Safire was just pounding on President Bush, the elder, and his Attorney General, Bill Barr, because they first it was for covering up Iraq-gate. Iraq-gate was when first Reagan and then again the Bush administration, the first Bush administration, were illegally selling weapons of mass destruction to Saddam Hussein. It had been outlawed by Congress. We don't want to get in the middle of the war between Iraq and Iran. Oh, yes, Reagan sure did, and so did Bush. And Barr helped cover that up to the point where William Safire, this iconic, famous op-ed writer, he used to write a column called On Language. He was what you might call an English language scold. If you didn't construct your sentences properly, William Safire was all over you. But he wandered into the realm of politics in 92, which was very rare for William Safire. He's long gone now, but, passed on. But he just had enough. Bill Barr was playing cover-up artist, first for Iraq-gate and then for Iran-Contra. In fact, in December of 1992, in the last week of December of 1992, Bill Barr advised George Herbert Walker Bush, who had been subpoenaed by Congress to turn over his political diaries that would have revealed his role in Iran-Contra, Bill Barr said, well, you want to stop the investigation, just pardon everybody. So he pardoned Caspar Weinberger, and he pardoned Ollie North, and he pardoned a couple of other guys. And that not only got them off the hook, so Ollie North could go on to be the head of the NRA, and Caspar Weinberger could go back to business and being a wealthy multimillionaire. Not only did that happen, but it ended the investigation. I mean, that was just it. Full stop, period. No more investigation into Iran-Contra because the witnesses were all pardoned. The participants we knew about. And Lawrence Walsh, who was the special counsel at the time, that generation's equivalent of Robert Mueller, went to the news media and said, this is a cover-up. I mean, look at, if you've got a New York Times subscription, you can see this very, very easily. Just look at the January 25th, Christmas Day edition of the New York Times, the front page. Screaming three-line, four-column headline, all caps. Prosecutor decries cover-up. 5 in Iran-Contra affair. It's a cover-up, yeah, and it was engineered by Bill Barr. So these guys, there's all this speculation right now on various. I'm seeing a couple of articles over on DU, on Daily Kos, over at Raw Story, over on Alternet. In the New York Times, the Washington Post, for that matter, in their op-ed columns, wondering in fact, there was a piece in the Financial Times this morning, has the Republican Party now, because of the damage being done to it by Donald Trump, become a permanent minority party? I think the answer is very clearly no. Donald Trump's unpopularity is within 1 point of what George Herbert Walker Bush's was in 92 and Jimmy Carter's was in 1980 at this point. And in both cases, the Republican and Democratic parties recovered from that. So I guarantee you the Republican Party, is not done. They are still a party of the billionaires. They are still a party that hates labor. They are still a party that hates working people. They're still a party that wants to privatize Medicare and Medicaid, turn them over to big insurance companies like United Healthcare and Aetna. They're still the party that wants to hand your Social Security so they can administer it. Peterson campaigned for years, and then he passed on, and it's still going. This was Ronald Reagan's thing. This is what George W. Bush ran for Congress on in 70 and lost in that election. So they're still, they're still there. And they've still got the billionaires in the top 1% funding them. We were talking earlier about, who are the people who are still the Trump supporters. The number one on the list, the wealthy people that Trump is making wealthier. The billionaire class in America has made hundreds of billions of dollars just in the last 3 months, while the rest of us have, been losing jobs, losing income, going on unemployment. When you can get through particularly the red state websites where they make it nearly impossible. Rick Scott reconfigured the entire unemployment process when he was governor of Florida. Rick Scott, the guy who used to be the CEO of the company that committed, when he was CEO, the largest Medicare fraud in the history of America, went on to take millions and millions out of that company and use those millions to become governor of Florida and now the United States Senator from Florida. Rick Scott reconfigured or oversaw the reconfiguring of that state's unemployment system so that you had to use a website that didn't work. There's a lot of unemployed people in Florida. This morning, Florida and Texas are not reporting their unemployment numbers to the Department of Labor, which might have something to do with why unemployment doesn't look as bad as it does. These are huge states. Their numbers weren't in the count. But meanwhile, you've got FreedomWorks here sending out, there's another email from FreedomWorks. Don't let mail-in voting spoil the election.